So we got the Gate Aster installed. It's beautifully put into our gearbox. Now we need to handle the programming for it. Hi, channel host Marshmallow, and in this video we're going to do just that. We're going to hop into the Gate control station and take a nice overview of the options that it has to offer, even in the basic edition. So stick around. So the Gate control station, this is the software that Gate has from their website that you use to program your MOSFET through their USB link. When you download it, install it, and this is the page that you will first see. You can sign up an email, password, and whatnot, but unless you're getting the upgraded versions, that's not really necessary. I just hit the skip registration. From here it will bring you to the dashboard where you have your computer system, and as you hook up your link and your MOSFET, the rest of that information will come through. So right now I'm going to go ahead and hook up the link, and it's going to start to recognize it. Recognizing. And here we go. Now it's got all that information and the firmware. When you first open it, there's usually somewhere in here, if there's an update, another beta version, you can click on that and download it. And when you do, that's when you come over here, and that can be the different firmware versions for the link. Next, we'll go ahead and hook up our MOSFET, and that's right through your battery link. And we've got our Aster. And this is where the Edition, Basic, if you would upgrade it, that's where it would show the other options. And of course, your firmware down here will show you the latest one when there's updates. So first we come to the general, and this is a couple different parts. Your first option here is with your battery. You can choose don't recognize at all, don't worry about it kind of thing, or you can choose which battery you have. For the cells, same thing if you have a 3 or a 2, or you can just say auto. And then finally is a low battery warning. You can either have it off or you can set it to any of the 2 voltages as you prefer. So I'm going to leave it at that. Next is your series safety limit. I haven't messed with this too much, but from what I've read on their website, basically it works in conjunction with the rate of fire to where your first round would be at full speed, and then the rounds after that would go to whatever you've set your rate of fire for. So if it's 50%, that's what it would go to. So that's what that is. Cycle detection, that has to do with this sensor right here on your sector gear. If you said to turn it off, you don't want that, you will notice that when we do that, the light disappears, and it will kind of give you this little warning down here. I prefer to have it on, but if you're going to be making all sorts of different adjustments, you may have to turn that off to make them work. Finally, your active brake. This is in with your motor, so you can tell it when to go through the braking process or how hard to. Again, I haven't played around with this. You'd have to read on your own and kind of get an understanding, unfortunately. Next, we move on to trigger. Now, this is a couple things here. First is your calibrate. Now, as it sits right now, I have it on safe, so when I pull, nothing happens. If I put it into semi, you will see with the white bar as I start to pull the trigger back. And if at any time you need to calibrate it, when you click on it, first you pull it all the way to the rear, hold it, hit next, release it, hit next, and now we're calibrated and good to go. So we'll leave that. Pre-cocking, you do have the option to do that. You can switch it via the selector, and these are the different speeds as far as the delay, how far back you want that spring to go in each of these different settings. I haven't played with it, so again, that's something you would have to just kind of play around with to find what sweet spot that you prefer, because everybody's going to be different. So I'm going to leave that off, and close. Next is your rate of fire that we were talking about. Now, before we continue on that, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like. Leave your comments for sure. I appreciate the feedback. And if you know someone that could find this information useful to them, feel free to share with them as well. Without further ado, let's get right back into it. If you set that, this is where you can change it down. So if 100% was 40 rounds a second, you could take it all the way down to 50% of that, so like 20 rounds a second. I haven't had to play with that, but just wanted to show that option as well. Next is into your trigger preferences. Now this is where you can change your sensitivity. It's like right now I know I don't want 42, I prefer the 21, so that moves the fire rate down, so when you start to pull it, it'll have a sooner response time. Now there's a two-stage mode as well. The two-stage, when you click this on, it says right here in your first stage, at whatever level you pull it at this sensitivity, it will set to semi-fire. So if I'm just pop, 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 if you pull it to second stage, to here, it goes to your second option. So if you're just like setting it, so let me realistically set this to what I had. So 21. So if I'm just pulling semi, boom, 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 you know, boom, whatever. If you wanted to say, okay, now I want to go into full auto on my second, when you pull it to the rear and hold it, it will go to that full auto setting. You can also set it to your burst round 2 that would be set. So you could fire a single round and then full it, and it would be a 3. That's something you want to make sure that depending on what field you're playing, that if you're running as rifleman you can't do auto or burst, you won't want to set that. But that's just something that is a two-stage system. Next we move on to the selector. Now this is your selector plate, and I'll put this back in safe. You can calibrate it through here. Right now I'll just hit the calibrate, so I've got it in safe, hit next, move it up to the semi, hit next, move it to auto, hit next. So now it's calibrated, so we see we got auto, semi, safe, semi, auto, and such. Here's where you get to choose how you want those settings to be. The free version, the first one's always safe. In your second, this is where you can set to binary. Now don't get this confused with your two-stage. What binary is if you have just that set under 1, is when you pull it to the rear it will fire a shot. When you release it, it will fire another shot in semi-auto. So you could get off 2 rounds in 1 trigger pull. Now if you did the two-stage and set, let's say, that last one to a 3-round burst, technically you could get 5 rounds off just in 1 trigger pull. But that's what the binary is. It's 2 shots for the price of 1. And then last, you can either put in auto for your auto position, or you can put it in a burst. If you hit save, that's when the burst mode will unlock. And then here, this is where you can set it to either fire all those rounds, no problem, or you can put a very, very slight pause with the interruptible. And then with the version, you can either do 3 or 5 rounds. But I'll be setting this at auto. Next we move to magazine. And magazine mode, what this is when you turn it on, is it simulates you having a 30-round capacity magazine. Now in this version you only get the 30 rounds, other ones you can change that. But what happens is once your Aster detects 30 shots, doesn't matter how you did them, whether it was semi, full auto, bursts, or a combination, once it hits that 30, it will not fire for 3 seconds, basically simulating a reload. So that's a neat little option if you wanted to, I guess, make it a little more realistic. Now we come down to our alerts. And here's where you want to turn on your warnings or warnings and info. The warnings one is going to be important because back here in the general, when we set that warning for the low battery, if I didn't turn it on here, that warning would not go through. Next you got your statistics. This is where, after, if you were curious how many rounds you went through during a day or event, whatever, this is where that count can be, and then you can hit the reset through here and say which one you want to clear. Finally is your diagnostics. This is where if you get any error codes, these are where they're going to be. And you can click on them when they come up. I did a previous video on one that did, and then you can clear it. So that's the basis of that. I'm hoping this helps you out and gives you kind of a better understanding of what this software has to offer. And again, when they have these firmwares that come out at the time of recording this, they're free to download. You're not paying for those firmwares. So that's that, and we'll talk to you all soon.